Recently, I've been playing a lot more Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's my favorite Mario Kart game, and one of the reasons that is because of its incredible track selection. It's got the most tracks in the series with a total of 12 cups with 4 tracks each, bringing us to a total of 48 tracks. That of course got me thinking, which of these cups do I think is the best? Which do I think is the worst? So today, I'm going to be ranking all the cups in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe from the worst to the best. Now how will I be doing this? Well, these rankings will be based on the tracks included within these cups. In order for these cups to get a better position, you're going to want these tracks to be good and great all around. The more good tracks the better, and I'll be giving my opinion on each course for each of the cups to say why I believe that cup as a whole should get that spot. Most of the time, a lot of these will be carried by one super good course, which made this really hard to decide, as there are only 3 tracks in this game that I kinda feel are below average. Usually, if a cup has a bad track, it won't really bring it down all too much, just as long as the others are all good. One last thing before we start. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe, but with that out of the way, let's jump right into my rankings for all of the cups in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Starting us off with number 12, we have the Banana Cup. Now, even though I believe this is the worst cup in the game, it's not even that bad. Really goes to show how good Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's track selection is. The reason it isn't last place, however, is just because none of these tracks really go above or below average for me. All the other cups have at least one really good track, and while this one doesn't really have a bad one, it doesn't really have one I'm begging to play over and over. Jumping into the first track, Dry Dry Desert from Double Dash. If you didn't know, these bottom 4 are all made up of tracks from previous Mario Kart games. That means interesting changes will also be a factor for these retro tracks. Dry Dry Desert is just okay. It's just really a generic desert, and really, I don't usually find those that fun. They didn't really do anything to innovate on a desert level here, which makes this track one of the most boring ones concept-wise. The shortcuts here also aren't that interesting or fun, where you just have a ramp in the off-road. In terms of changes from the original, this is actually one of the tracks I feel like wasn't really improved. This section here was changed to have water, which is pretty cool, though I wouldn't really say it fits its title of Dry Dry Desert. They also removed this tornado here and even this really cool piranha plant that'd eat you if you fell in. Instead, now it's just kind of an empty hole. Most of the retro tracks have made significant improvements over their original, but this one just didn't really. I still don't think this track is bad, like it's fun to drive on and everything, and the Pokies give some fun challenges, but it's really just okay. Donut Plains 3 is probably my favorite track here. It's simple, sure, but sometimes that's nice to have when the other tracks are crazy. I like this shortcut here with the cut in the wall, and bouncing off the moles is kinda fun. This track also looks really nice as well with its colorful and somewhat muddy look. Now this did of course originate from the SNES, so what were the changes? Well, the water section can now be driven in, and yeah, that's about it. This is definitely the least changed retro track layout-wise, so that does take a few points off, but it's still pretty fun to play on. Obviously, its looks were heavily updated, so if it weren't for that, my views may be slightly more tainted. It's not amazing, but it's still pretty good. Royal Raceway is up there with Donut Plains 3 being another solid track. This is also pretty simple, but it's very nice to look at and it's fun to play on. The shortcuts all pretty much come down to just cutting through the grass, there's nothing really special here. But as for the changes, the ramp here is made into a glider section, which makes complete sense, as looking back, the original jump just kinda looks lame now in comparison. I'm almost willing to bet that this jump here was the reason it was chosen to be remade at all. However, this retro track contains by far the worst change of any of them in the game. In the original N64 version, you were actually able to take a detour off the road and drive around the castle grounds, which is exactly the same as Mario 64. This was such a cool Easter egg, but now the castle is blocked off from racers. Even though you wouldn't really be doing this much in gameplay, that really brought down my views of this track. It's still fun to drive on, just nothing outstanding, and that Easter egg getting removed kinda makes me sad. Our final track is DK Jungle, and honestly, I'm just not really a fan. Something about it just isn't appealing to me. Maybe it's because I'm not a big DK guy, but still, something feels off. I don't find this one fun to drive on as the other 3, especially at the beginning, but it's still fairly fun. This is actually our first track in the cup to use Mario Kart 8's signature feature, Anti-Gravity, funnily enough. And in all honesty, it's just kinda lame. I do like this ending bit though, with the split paths, but the rest of the track is extremely mediocre to me. Now I know it may seem weird that this cup is in last place, even though I liked a good amount of it. It's just that these tracks are only okay compared to how good the others are, giving this cup the 12th place spot. 11th place will go to the first cup of the game, the Mushroom Cup. This is a great tutorial for the game, however, that means many of these tracks will be more boring than some of the other ones after it. This is most obvious in the first track, Mario Kart Stadium. It's a really good tutorial course and is perfect for showcasing the game's mechanics from a simple but nice anti-gravity section along with the glider ramp right after. While this track does its job perfectly, I never really feel excited to go through it again, as pretty much most of the other tracks are just more creative or wacky. There's still a few fun cuts like the ending here with the pipes, but this is really just a basic Mario Kart track. A good one granted, but not one I'm super excited to play. Water Park is definitely the most generic sounding course name in the entire game, yes, even more generic than Battle Course 1. But yeah, this is my least favorite track here, honestly. The aesthetic just never really did anything for me. On top of that, a majority of this course is just one really big turn here, which is just kinda boring because I just hold drift the whole time, which isn't terribly exciting. My favorite part of this track though is definitely gliding out of the water only to run face first into the Ferris wheel car. Other than that though, driving on this track is pretty boring, which makes it one of the most honestly meh tracks in the game. Sweet Sweet Canyon is the next course, and this is a really fun one. I really like its design of using sweets in multiple paths in anti-gravity, make it also very interesting to drive on. I also have always liked the shortcut through the donut, which is fun and creative. I don't really have much to say on this one other than it's nice and simple fun. The final course of the cup also happens to be my favorite here, being Thwomp Ruins. I love the aesthetic and design here so much, and they absolutely nail it. I love that you go in and out of a temple, and driving on the track is just plain fun. The section here will also have a glider ramp open up as you race on the track, which is really neat, and it's fun to try to avoid the falling gears inside to then glide around. This shortcut here near the end is also really good, with a good mix of risk and reward, especially in 200cc, which makes it really fun to go for. This track is definitely the reason this cup didn't get last. Unfortunately, the first two tracks do bring it down a bit, and with so many other great cups, I have to put Mushroom Cup here at 11th place. Like I said, a lot of these are pretty good, and Thwomp Ruins is great, but Mario Kart Stadium I just don't really ever feel like going back to, though it's not bad, and Water Park is just kinda meh. Next on the list is the first retro cup of the game, the Shell Cup. Like the other ones we mentioned, none of these tracks are bad, they're just all fairly good, but not extraordinary. Moo Moo Meadows is one of my favorite tracks in general, so I'm really happy it was brought back from Wii. It looks way nicer now, and it's still just as fun to drive on as ever. They didn't really do much with it other than add this glider ramp, but it was already pretty good. Still though, it's a bit basic, but I really like it nonetheless. Mario Circuit from Mario Kart Super Circuit is next, and my opinions on it are very similar. I like that it's fun and simple, and its aesthetic has been greatly improved. The big change for this one is that they made this part of the track go up in the air to be anti-gravity, which was a simple but great change for this track. Like Moo Moo Meadows, I really do like this one quite a bit. Cheep Cheep Beach is definitely my least favorite track here. It's solid, but just nothing exciting. The design is okay, it just really doesn't have anything that sticks out. Our final track is Toad's Turnpike, and it's pretty solid. I love the addition of the anti-gravity walls and the glider cars, which make this track more fun to go on. Other than those though, it's a bit basic with only a few turns. The cars are much easier to avoid now, taking away from a lot of the intensity of this track for me that was in the original on the N64. So in the end, while my opinions on these tracks are certainly higher than those of the Banana Cup, these are still only pretty good tracks. I know that sounds super weird that such good tracks are near the bottom, but they had some really stiff competition. On to number 9, we have our first Mario Kart 8 DLC Cup, being the Bell Cup. This one was definitely my hardest placement to make, but I think it had to be done. The reason why? It contains, in my opinion, the worst track in the game, Neo Bowser City. I never liked this track, even back in Mario Kart 7, so seeing it be remade, in huge quotes by the way, was a real shame. This aesthetic is really unappealing, but even worse than that is driving on it. The track just seems too small and tight. Some turns like this one here are super bad, as you almost always have to stop yourself, especially in 200cc. The walls also feel far too tight, leading to just horribly unfun driving experiences. On top of that, the only real change is making the ending an anti-gravity, but it's probably the lamest use of it in the entire game. You're really just on like a steep incline that you could probably just walk up normally anyways. It's a real shame they decided to remake this one instead of one of the other Mario Kart 7 tracks like Shy Guy Bazaar. This one track really brings down this entire cup, but let's go ahead and talk about the other three. Ribbon Road is in my opinion the most improved retro track in the entire game. The two Super Circuit DLC tracks got extremely good treatment coming into this game. The art style is somewhat similar to the original, however now it takes place in a child's bedroom, giving the track a whole new style that I absolutely love. The track just gets better as you go along, with my favorite part of it being the ending. The new anti-gravity wavy road is just way too fun to drive on, and the glider section with the clown cars is great as well. I always like the ending shortcut too. With its completely improved layout and aesthetic, it's almost completely unrecognizable from its original in Super Circuit in a great way. This is definitely one of my favorite retro tracks, it's just so fun and good. Next up is Super Bell Subway. I should mention that these DLC cups had a mix of retro tracks and originals, so now we're moving on to the original ones. This track is, in all honesty, just okay, but I think the travel theme was done much better in Sunshine Airport. This is certainly the most forgettable DLC track for me, and it's just the definition of okay. There's nothing bad here, sure, but nothing great. Finally, we have Big Blue, which is based off of F-Zero. This is the first track in the video to not be 3 laps long, but instead split into 3 different segments. I adore this track a ton, and of the 2 F-Zero tracks in the game, I feel like this one is superior, just because I like the tracks that mix it up and don't use 3 laps, but also this has some of the most fun cuts of any of the tracks in the game. Because of how physics are handled on these, you can go flying from one road to another very easily, which is super fun to perform, especially in the 2 spots I just showed. Just those alone make this track great. This cup is so tragic. If only Neo Bowser City was literally anything else, then this may have been one of the best, with 2 great ones and another one that's just really okay. But for now, I can't really justify giving it anything higher than number 9. This is also probably a good spot in the video to mention that all of this is just my opinion, so it's completely okay to disagree, but yeah, I just can't put this anywhere above number 9 with it having Neo Bowser City. Now let me just say that from here all the way up to pretty much number 2, it was extremely hard to decide the rankings, as almost all of them have 1 or 2 of my favorite tracks, with the others being pretty solid. I think number 8 is going to have to go to the Leaf Cup, however. It kicks off with Wario Stadium, which I have quite a bit of nostalgia for since Mario Kart DS was my first entry into the series. This track is definitely the most average one here though. It's fun to race in for sure, and I love the anti-gravity addition. It's just not super out there like the others. Also, I have no idea how I lived so long without knowing that Wario Stadium and Waluigi Pinball had the same theme. Well, whatever, it will always be Waluigi Pinball in my heart, and it's called Waluigi Pinball in Smash, so I'm happy. Sherbert Land is my least favorite track here. I like that you can now use these underwater parts for cool new routes, but the ice theme is just not really sticking with me. Like Dry Dry Desert, it just feels a bit too generic. It's still pretty solid, don't get me wrong. I also love the secret hidden glider ramp, but I feel this could have been a bit better. I still think it's better than Dry Dry Desert though, as the changes here are actually pretty good. Now though, we get into the big boys of this cup, starting with Music Park. This was one of 7's greatest tracks, and while not much has changed, they didn't really need to. This is just an all-around fun track to look at and race on. The music thing works perfectly for Mario Kart, and the fact that you can ride on the instruments which will then play the theme of the track is so great. I also love the portion with the music notes where if you time it right, you are able to trick off the ground whenever they slam down. The Piranha Plant part is also fun. I like to try to get as close as I can without getting chomped. Overall, a great track, but my favorite still has to go to Yoshi Valley. Sure, Music Park's aesthetic is cooler and more creative, but Yoshi Valley's layout is way more interesting. This track's gimmick is just how many different ways there are to go about completing it. This has by far the most paths of any Mario Kart track in existence, which was really cool. I usually stick with going to the left, but having this many options is still really neat. I also love the shortcuts here. This bridge at the left is fun to go across and is a bit risky as it's pretty small. The ending is also perfect for mushrooming through some turns. The only thing I don't like about this track is that sometimes the egg at the end is completely unavoidable, but other than that, it's a great track. Similar to the last cup, this one is held back by one mediocre track, but not by so much as it's still pretty good. That's why the Leaf Cup gets 8th place. The Flower Cup is my next choice for the list at 7th. It starts off with Mario Circuit, which is probably Mario Kart 8's signature track. It's based off a Mobius strip, which is also what the 8 in the logo is based on as well. This leads to an incredibly interesting track where you drive on both sides of the land using anti-gravity. This one's a ton of fun, and it's cool to see the surroundings seem to go upside down due to where you are on the track. It makes complete sense that this was on the original box art for Mario Kart 8, and that this was included in Super Smash Bros., as it probably has some of the best uses for anti-gravity in the game. This one is also just quite fun to drive on, leading to a pretty nice track. Toad Harbor is next, and it's also pretty great. I just really love the town feel of this track, along with being near the water. The boat at the start is a fun little shortcut, along with the ending patch of grass in this part here. Like Toad's Turnpike, anti-gravity is mostly used for the walls, which are fun to go across as well. This one is just great and simple fun. Twisted Mansion is probably my least favorite one here, but it's still pretty solid. The haunted house theme has already been done in Mario Kart, so the idea isn't horribly original, though the flooded parts are pretty cool. I also really like the shortcut here where you cut through the bookcases, but other than that, it's just kind of an okay track. Finally, my favorite in the Flower Cup is Shy Guy Falls. I think this just has an amazing use for anti-gravity where you ride up and down waterfalls, which is just amazing. This track also has a nice look as well, with the Shy Guys mining in the background. Its main shortcut here is great, with it being more obscure than most of the other shortcuts, but still risky and fun to perform. Overall, this cup has a pretty great track selection, with the only average one being Twisted Mansion. For having 3 pretty good to great tracks, it takes 7th place. Well, we're now halfway done with our list, leaving 6 more cups. 6th place will be going to the Triforce Cup. Before we jump into the tracks, can I comment on just how cursed it is that Rainbow Road is in the middle of the cup instead of at the end? Like, I know it's because it's a retro track and everything, but still, it's very cursed. This one starts off with Wario's Gold Mine, which is the 3rd track in the game with Wario in its name, tied for the same amount as Mario, which is pretty weird. This one is a really fun one. It's pretty distinct from the other tracks in the game, and the newly added anti-gravity really helps this track to be even more fun than it already was in Mario Kart Wii. Just like the other Wario tracks, this is another great one that's always fun to go on. Next we've got the most remade track in Mario Kart history, SNES Rainbow Road. This has 4 iterations in Super Mario Kart, Super Circuit, Mario Kart 7, and of course here in 8, and this isn't including Mario Kart Tour of course. It's the most iconic Mario Kart track, so it makes sense to be remade so much. Personally, I really like this track. With the addition of 200cc as well, it brings another layer of challenge to it. I'm not sure if it's my favorite of the 3 Rainbow Roads here, but it's certainly up there. I have a blast playing on this classic, and I'm happy it's here. Even though it's kind of weird they decided to bring this back right after it was in 7, with, from what I can tell, no differences other than visuals. Still though, I'm happy it's here. Ice Outpost was a track I was originally unsure about, though the more I play it, the more fun I actually have with it. The 2 different paths make up most of the track, not only giving it a nice layout, but since they're yellow and green, they also give this ice level a very distinct look, which I feel like was missing from courses like Sherbert Land. This is another great one. Hyrule Castle is the last track here, and it's based off the Zelda franchise, and man, there's a ton of great stuff here. For one, making it based off of Zelda gives it its own unique look, and they even replace a few things, like piranha plants are now Deku Babas, and coins are now rubies. I also really like how if you hit each of these boosters, you unlock a secret path that skips a bit of the track. Classic Zelda jingle and all. Since it's a small puzzle, it works extremely well in the Zelda-themed track, and it's actually one of my favorite shortcuts in the game for that reason. Overall, this cup is the first one where I feel like all the tracks were really good. I can't really figure out which is my favorite or least favorite since they're all pretty much the same level. For that, they get the 6th place spot. Man, this competition is fierce if this only got 6th. Now this top 5 was so extremely hard to put together, and honestly, I'm still unsure about my choices, especially with numbers 5 through 3. But I'll be giving the Special Cup the number 5 spot. This is the final Nitro Cup in the game, and while it's not the best cup, it was still a pretty good way to go out. Starting off with Cloudtop Cruise, which is an extremely cool looking track. I've always liked bright cloud levels like this, but that's not all this has. You also ride an airship and get blasted into a thundercloud, which is really interesting. Inside the thundercloud, getting a boost is a bit of a risk, as lightning will occasionally strike down on some of the panels. After that, you land on a vine, which is a super incredible way to tie this into the Mario franchise itself, as the vine is actually coming out of a giant question mark block, which is so cool. The ending shortcut is also fun to perform, leading to an extremely fun track. Now for one, I have a fairly decent disliking for Bone Dry Dunes. Now to some of you, this may seem weird, because you all know that Dry Bones is my favorite gaming character ever, Dry Bones for Smash. So why would I hate this track, with him featured the most? I'll tell you. One, I think the aesthetics are just boring. But more importantly, this track is likely the reason Dry Bones wasn't playable in the original Mario Kart 8. Thank goodness they added him back for Deluxe, but since he was an enemy here, they probably cut him from the roster for that reason. But moving on to Bowser's Castle, and yep, this is the best Bowser's Castle and my favorite track in this cup. Okay, I know what you're all saying. Bowser Castle 2 from Super Mario Kart is just so much more epic and memorable, but I mean, look at this. The looks for this castle are more intense and interesting than ever, with the obstacles being even better. I mean, it's got a giant stone Bowser to punch on an anti-gravity track. Near the end, you leave the castle into a glider section over a large lava pit, dodging huge boulders. I also love the song used on this track. I didn't really factor music into my ranking since pretty much all of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's music is good, but man, this song is great. I always have fun on this track whenever I get it. Finally, we have, of course, this game's rendition of Rainbow Road. Honestly, this one's just okay. Of the 3 Rainbow Roads, it's probably my least favorite, but it's still pretty good. I love the part with the 2 roads and the fact that you can jump between them, which I do every time on this track. It's cool that it takes place in a space station, which goes well with the anti-gravity and such, but that's the thing. I feel this track could have been a lot crazier with anti-gravity, but we got what we got, and while it's still a fun track, I can't help but feel a slight bit disappointed by it. Either way, though, this cup has 2 of my favorite tracks in Cloudtop Cruise and Bowser's Castle. A pretty good one with Rainbow Road, and then Bone Dry Dunes, so for its mixed track selection, it gets 5th on the list. Bone Dry and Dunes really brought this down from the top 3, if I'm being honest. Back to our DLC ones, we have the Egg Cup, which I honestly feel just barely edges out the Special Cup, with its low point not being nearly as bad as Bone Dry Dunes. We start off with Yoshi Circuit, which is, and likely always will be, my favorite circuit track ever. The design and idea behind this track alone is just incredible, where the whole thing is in the shape of a Yoshi, which is just plain cool. It's an extremely fun one to race on as well, with its aesthetic being simple but very pleasant. The shortcut through the waterfall here is probably my favorite in the game. It's simple, sure, but it's a huge skip and is fun to perform. Combined with the item boxes right before, there's really no other feeling than getting a mushroom right before this jump and being able to perform it. This is one of my favorite tracks in the game, and it totally makes sense that this was one of the very few tracks to be remade multiple times, excluding the ones remade for the GBA. In fact, it's one of only 3. The next track is another one that hits out of the park, being Excitebike. This track is of course based off the Excitebike game, and it's a perfect transition into Mario Kart. Its simple oval shape isn't super interesting, sure, but jumping off of all the ramps is such a fun blast. The Excitebike-inspired design is also really nice. This track is also the only one, kind of, that's randomly generated. Besides in time trials, each time you play this, the placement of the ramps will be different, making this very interesting every time you try it. This is another one of my favorites for all these reasons, and I'm happy they decided to revive Excitebike for this track. Now is my least favorite track here being Dragon Driftway, but in no way does that mean it's bad. Its design is very unique compared to any other Mario Kart track before it, and it's very wavy, which is also really fun. I can't really describe why this is my least favorite, it's super fun, but I just feel like the other tracks here are just so much better. Speaking of, we have the second F-Zero track in this video, Mute City. While I personally feel like Big Blue is better, this one is still really good. This one captures the speed of F-Zero a bit better in my opinion, with dash panels literally everywhere. I also like these things on the side of the road, which will give you coins if you go over them. The ending's big jump is also fun, as if you hold backwards, you actually fly for significantly longer, which I'm not sure is actually faster or slower, but I do it every time since it's really fun. This cup is the only one with 2 non-Mario tracks as well, which is pretty interesting. This one had 2 great ones at the start and 2 pretty good ones at the end, which gives it the number 4 spot on this list. Now on to our top 3, with the final DLC cup, the Crossing Cup. This one starts off with Baby Park, which, wow, is so good. This is the third of the 3 tracks with multiple remakes with Yoshi Circuit and SNES Rainbow Road. This track originally came back in DS, and many people, including myself, felt like it lost some of its charm back in Double Dash, being a lot less chaotic with its tamer items and being shorter. However, with Deluxe, they fixed this completely. This is the only track in the game with not 3, but 7 laps, and now with 12 racers instead of 8, this has been brought back to its chaotic fun. This is certainly the simplest track in the game, being just a small circle, but that's what makes it so good. It now takes place in anti-gravity the whole time, which adds to it a ton. The track will have you always on your toes, even if you're a front runner, as you'll still generally be side by side with players that are a lap behind that can still hit you with items. This track is one of my favorites. It's also got quite a fun time trial as well, which I definitely suggest you all trying. Next up we have another amazing retro track, Cheese Land. This was the other Mario Kart Super Circuit track remade here alongside Ribbon Road, and while I feel like this one's a slight bit worse than that, it's still incredible. This greatly expands on the Cheese Land aesthetic the original had by making the layout actually interesting. Like Ribbon Road, this one is nearly unrecognizable from the original, layout-wise, which is a really good thing. This one is super fun to race on, and the numerous shortcuts through this cheese and to these ramps help a lot as well. This is alongside Ribbon Road as some of the best track remakes in Mario Kart history. The track following this is the brand new track Wild Woods, which has a really unique feel to it. It takes place inside a tree, which hasn't really been done before, but this allows it to have a ton of unique areas. I especially love the ending with the water stream onto the leaves with boost panels, as it makes you feel like you're going really fast. The ending shortcut is also pretty cool as well, making this a really good track. Finally, we have Animal Crossing. I'm a big Animal Crossing fan, so seeing a track based off of it was really nice to see. It also changes depending on what time you play it, and the seasons will also randomly change. This makes this track have a ton of uniqueness every time you play it, making it never really feel too stale. The amount of references to Animal Crossing here is amazing as well. Coins are replaced with bells, and speaking of, you can run into this rock to make it spit out bells occasionally, just like in Animal Crossing. There's one section where the items can be gotten from balloons, and among so many other things, this track is not only a fun one to race on, but it's a great love letter to Animal Crossing. Wow, all of these tracks were great, and it only took number 3? Well, let's hop into our runner-up then. Number 2 is going to the final Retro Cup of the game, the Lightning Cup. Every single one of these tracks are absolutely incredible and are some of my favorites. Starting off with my favorite Mario Kart DS track, Tick-Tock Clock. Man, I was so excited to see this return, and boy did it not disappoint. The look of the track far exceeds the original on the DS, which honestly makes it look so much more barren now in comparison. This track has so many moving parts that act as both obstacles or even shortcuts. This track is some of the hardest shortcuts in the game, especially this one here at the end. Sure, it's not horrible or anything, but it's so risky that I only ever go for it when I really need to. But that makes it much more amazing too, because it's so much more exciting. The gears at the end are fun to ride on as well, and in general, this whole track is just pure fun from beginning to end. The second one is my least favorite one here, but it's still an amazing track, being Piranha Plant Slide. I love the retro-ish Mario design they go with here, and the flowing water makes this track feel even more fast-paced and interesting. I love its ending shortcut where you break through this bush cutout and skip a fairly big turn. It's another incredible one to play through, and I'm super happy it made it in. Grumble Volcano, my favorite Mario Kart Wii track, is here as well. I love that they decided to remake this instead of another Bowser's Castle, as, aside from this game's Bowser Castle, I find this much more interesting than any of them. This track's gimmick is that it falls apart the more you play it, which is something I really love. It makes each lap feel distinct and extra intense as the track gets smaller and smaller. It also will open a few more shortcuts as it crumbles away, which is another neat idea as well. While the idea of a volcano may not be super unique, they absolutely nail it here, and it is stunning. This one is along with Tick-Tock Clock being one of my favorite retro tracks in the game. But even still, we aren't done yet with N64 Rainbow Road. This is another one-lap track, and while some people here were upset with the change, I generally think this was for the better. This track looks gorgeous and is the best looking of the Rainbow Roads, and in my opinion, probably my favorite one to race on as well. Everything from bouncing chain chomps to the perfectly placed boost panels to the ending glider is phenomenal. There's a good reason this was chosen to be the track on the box art for Deluxe. It was just so good. All 4 of these were phenomenal choices, and for them all to be with each other, it certainly got the best average of all the cups in the game. But even still, there's one cup that I think barely edges it out. And now, in my opinion, the best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Cup, the Star Cup. It starts off right away with a great track in Sunshine Airport. I love the theme here a ton where you drive on runways and fly along with airplanes. This absolutely nails its theme perfectly from inside and outside of the airport. These shortcuts, while nothing horribly special, are still pretty fun to perform. This is just a great track in theme and layout. Now the next one, I'm gonna be honest, is what made this cup really hard to put at number 1. Dolphin Shoals is the most okay track for me in the entire game. There's nothing really special about it, and it isn't super fun as it feels kinda slow paced. It's still okay, but this track made it really hard for me to be 100% sure. But if that track is in this cup, the most okay track in my opinion in the game, why do I feel like this cup still deserves number 1 after the Lightning Cup? Well, the last 2 tracks are easily some of the best in Mario Kart history. So you remember how I said that Mario Circuit is the face of this game, being on the box art and using anti-gravity? Well, throw that out the window, as Electrodrome is the Mario Kart 8 track. Taking place at a huge party, everything from its design, its music, its colors, and its layout scream everything about Mario Kart 8. There is no questioning why this is one of the most fan favorites here. It's so visually distinct from every other track in the game, and driving on it is a blast. My favorite part is probably the anti-gravity parts. You start on this main area here, which is fairly open for you to get hit or hit other racers. Karts will also leave really cool colored trails behind them before splitting off into 2 paths. This is the only course that has split paths like this that I don't go the same way every time, which is how I feel it should be. None of them feel better or worse than the others, so I usually decide based on where my opponents are heading. The ending is also really cool with a glider section leading into an area being open for a massive shortcut. There's no question why this is one of the best Mario Kart 8 Deluxe tracks that perfectly capture this game. But even still, I believe there's a track that's even better. Mount Wario is my absolute favorite Mario Kart track ever. It's the final course that's split into 3 parts instead of 3 laps, and it does it the best here. It also does the snow theme way better than the others do. The first part, you drop out of a helicopter on the top of the mountain. In this part of the track, the road is very icy, but fun to go through. I especially love this shortcut here, where it's another one of my favorites, as it feels so fun to fly through the air, but also skip this huge gap. Then we enter segment 2, where we first enter a small tunnel, and here I usually just immediately jump into the water below. However, you can use a glider ramp if you so choose. Then you enter an anti-gravity and ride on the side of a dam and go across water strips before entering a small wooded area. This part is super fun to try and go fast by avoiding the trees and going over them. Then, for segment 3, it's more of going down the mountain with a ton of ramps and bumps to trick off of. The track ends with a glider ramp and one final turn at the bottom of the mountain with a crowd surrounding you. This track is incredible from beginning to end, with each part feeling distinct, memorable, and most importantly, fun. This track is also really colorful with all of its surroundings, not just being stuck to the whites that normally snow tracks are. This is easily the best Mario Kart track ever made in my opinion, and it will be very hard to top it in the future. So even though Dolphin Shoals may be a small stain in the Star Cup, the Great Sunshine Airport and the masterful and incredible tracks Electrodrome and Mount Wario bring it to its well-deserved #1 spot on this list. But anyways, that's it for this really long video. What's your favorite cup? Let me know in the comments. This was so hard to put together and I had to change several things about it several times, but I think I'm pretty happy with this ranking. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has such a great track selection which will be hard to top, but who knows, maybe they could do it in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe for more on Mario Kart and anything else Nintendo Switch. I don't normally do Mario Kart videos, so if you want me to do more, make sure to let me know by making this video do well for me. Links to my Twitter and Discord server are in the description below. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.